Russia, energy. How do we move forward from where we find ourselves today?
Oh, well, of course, first of all, we have to understand exactly what is going on. On the ground, probably Russia is facing a stalemate. The aggression is almost stopped, but the potential of the Russian army is still there. It's incomparable to the Ukraine ones, but they are resisting. So that means that we are not sure how long the war will last. But now we are facing in the EU a huge discussion about which are the best measures to implement in order to push Russians and Mr. Putin to stop the war. And of course, the key issue is what are we going to do with oil and gas?
Of course. And looking at that, I suppose, on a longer term perspective, how do we see that the war will influence the EU's strategy for energy going forward?
Well, unfortunately, we realized that our dependency on oil and gas, mainly gas, from Russia scored the highest degree in the last decades. So we are importing at the EU level 40% or probably something more of our gas from Russia. So now we have two points. First of all, immediately diversification of the procurement of gas. And second, to accelerate toward renewable energy. We have, as you probably know, the EU Commission decided to consider nuclear and gas transitional energy toward 2050 carbon neutral energy in EU. So, but we have to do both. Diversification on procurement of gas and to push forward the green energy and renewable.
So let's stay with that point on pushing forward, I suppose, reform in that area or change in that area. How prepared do you feel nations are for that? What situation do we find ourselves in that regard today? Because obviously that's something that's been brought forward quite suddenly.
Well, about gas, of course, is a matter of infrastructure. We are not ready immediately to have the total amount of gas from Russia diversified to LNG, because we have not enough power of regasification in Italy and Germany, but we have some, so we can increase. On renewable, we have to increase research, and we have to simplify. For instance, in Italy, this is an issue. We have to simplify the process of authorization for wind and solar, for instance. And then research on nuclear of the next generation, not the present technology, because it's costly. It requires too long time from the green field to a functioning nuclear plant.
Okay. And how do we see that Russia's dominance of the energy market today, how do we see that that will influence the response of nations as they try to play a role in resolving the war that we see in Ukraine?
Well, of course, let me say that EU and US, the transatlantic democratic community, reacted promptly and strongly with sanctions, providing defense weapons to Ukrainian legal and legitimate government, and to act in order to do all the best for the refugees. But of course, we didn't decide yet not to use, not to intervene directly, and not to cut immediately the procurement of gas, so that it means that we are sending to Mr. Putin's more or less 1 billion euros every day for the oil and gas. And this make a little bit weaker our reaction, but it's a strong reaction. Of course, we are blackmailed when it comes to energy so far.
Of course. And let's look post-war. Hopefully that comes as soon as possible, of course. What do you consider to be the priorities for the EU's energy strategy after the conflict is over and when we're in that period of rebuilding and potentially reconciliation?
Well, in principle, a strategy is yet on the table. That is Fit for 55. That means that in 2030 we have to reduce our carbon emission for 55%, and to reach at the half of the century carbon neutrality. So the strategy is there. That means renewables and gas and nuclear as transitional energy, but we have to push on the accelerator, especially in renewable energy. And of course, in the meanwhile, we have to use our energy. In Italy, we have some gas that we can. That so far we didn't use all the gas that we have under the sea. Probably immediately some carbon plant will be reopened just for a brief period. But the strategy is still there. And in the coming years, we have to diversify the procurement, mainly of gas. Well, the US, last week in Brussels, President Biden said that US, they are ready to provide gas through LNG gas, that it can help in the short term.
Okay. And staying with Italy, where does Italy stand on the war with Ukraine or in Ukraine?
Well, we stand with Ukraine without any doubt, alongside with the EU decisions and the NATO decision. And we think that the aggression of Mr. Putin's army is totally unprovoked, illegal, and we think that Mr. Zelensky has all the rights to defend the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. But of course, we are doing our best with the EU, in the multilateral forums, UN, or with our relations with Turkey or Israel to push a positive negotiation agenda. But of course, it's up to Mr. Putin to decide if you want to negotiate finally or not. And we hope that the pressure made by sanctions will push the Russian leadership and at the final moment Putin himself to stop the war and to sit at the at the table of negotiation.
Can we talk a little bit more about what Italy is doing with NATO and other partners in the EU to get to that point, to get to a point where this can be, where we can restore security, first of all?
Well, as I mentioned before, sanctions first of all, and secondly, also the Italian Parliament supported the government in order to provide weapons to the Ukrainians, because we think that a strong resistance from Mr. Zelensky's army is the better way to get a negotiation. If they show themselves weak or without capacity to resist to the Russian aggression, Mr. Putin won't stop. If he will see, and he's seeing now, that the Ukrainian army are strong, ready to resist, that people are on the side of Mr. Zelensky's resistance, so they understand that the war they can't win the war from a political point of view, but also from the military point of view, so that the negotiation is needed to stop the war in the interest of both sides.
Of course, of course. And my final question is just looking at the forum here. Obviously, we're here in Doha, returning to a physical forum, which is really great to see. What are you looking to get from the forum this year? What discussions are you interested in hearing and being involved in?
Well, I think that one of the main issues in this forum is to revamp the power of multilateralism. I heard this morning a positive agenda in this respect, because we need the war in Ukraine call all of us to restore the multilateralism, the well-functioning of the multilateral fora, and then to restore the UN agenda in terms of development, in terms of women empowerment, education. We listened to the two Afghan women discussing with passion about the necessity to stop the Taliban's when they say that the young women have not to go to school. Just is an example of a negative agenda, and we have to develop try to develop altogether a positive agenda. Where there is a positive agenda, economic development, multilateralism, there is no war.
Absolutely. Plenty more really, really important discussions to come. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.